This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. The following program is rated PG-13 and contains language and material that may be offensive to some audiences.
In this world of indecision, where there are no absolutes, men seek their direction from men who fear the truth. So the battles keep on raging and the fighting never stops. And it isn't gonna end until the last one standing drops. And the world just keeps on turning. And the lake.
Today's episode of The Havery Show, we have my friend Joel Parisien.
Hello.
It's good to have you.
It's good to be here.
We went down and saw you in Fort Myers at the Tribute Theater.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a cool show.
Great venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Really
And you and your buddies put on one hell of a show.
Mm-hmm.
I would never in my wildest dreams would have put together a show with Kenny Rogers, Smokey Robinson, and Lionel Richie.
Right.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad you
man,
liked it.
you made it work.
Thanks, man.
How did that even...
Well, let's give the short version of
Yeah,
the story.
sure.
What a lot of people don't know is a lot of Kenny Rogers' biggest hits were actually written or produced by Lionel Richie.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a long relationship between the two of them. And I thought, so first of all, the name of the group is called the Undercovers, and the show is called Rogers, Richie, and Robinson. And so it's not a traditional tribute show, although it does share some of that space, right? So for people that want to know what we're talking about here. And we just found that there were, aside from this treasure trove of great songs, there were really interesting stories behind the scenes of these three iconic artists that sort of almost represent page turns in popular music. Like Smokey Robinson and Motown, he's such a part of that era of music. And then all of a sudden you turn the page and you got a guy like Kenny Rogers, who went from being in the First Edition, a psychedelic rock group from Houston, Texas, I believe. And then all of a sudden becoming this icon of country music, but doesn't really have a country music story in the same way that a lot of country artists do.
Yeah.
And then you turn the page and nobody had more number one songs than Lionel Richie in the 80s, And then there's a story that weaves these three artists together and how much they influenced each other.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't realize that Smokey Robinson was like the head of A&R at Motown
That's
Records.
right.
He was a vice president there. And Lionel Richie got his start at Motown Records.
Mm-hmm.
And so, these artists that are so singular, they're icons in popular music, they were working together and they were helping each other out. And they were actually kind of passing the torch in terms of what was getting played on the radio. Like what was defining the era was popular music at that time, going from AM radio in the 60s to FM radio all of a sudden. And Kenny Rogers is right there. I mean, FM radio loved Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
So that's what our show is. It's almost like a walk down memory lane for, our market of mature music fans are going to remember where they were when they heard the Miracles, or, remember that maybe once, twice, three times a lady was the first dance at their wedding or whatever. And that's the idea behind the show.
It all comes back to the line in Piano Man, "Son, can you play me a memory?" And that's what we do.
Yeah,
Whether
absolutely.
we like it or not, that's what we're doing. And there is no other vehicle more powerful than music to transport you
100%.
back in time.
Yep.
You can get it sometimes with a smell or with, some deja vu thing, but music will give you a direct line to the past in the most magical ways.
And transcends language barriers too,
It certainly does.
I mean, I've been blessed enough to travel to many different countries around the world for whom English is a second language.
Mm-hmm.
And yet all of a sudden everybody's fluency goes up a notch when they're singing the lyrics of a song that they grew up with or that they know, and sometimes my own song, which is very humbling, to say the least.
That's
Here
right.
I am in Sweden.
Yeah.
Or something, and everybody knows the lyrics to my song. I'm like, holy smokes, like that's
pretty wonderful thing. And you just segued right into it.
I'm a pro, Harry. Come on,
you
man.
did fantastic. So you just segued into New World Son, your other
Sure.
project.
Yeah.
So you got the Undercovers, you got the commissionaires, and you got. I would say your. I don't know. Is it your biggest baby? Is it your marquee project, New World Son? Is that?
I would definitely say that New World Son is the project that has given me the most opportunity to travel and probably the most recognition, for sure.
Well, you're going all over Europe, and you've been doing that now for over 10 years.
Yeah, 15 years.
Yeah. So and you've got a huge following over there. That's got to be a wonderful thing.
It's very cool, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity to travel overseas as often as I have, and into the UK, Australia, New Zealand, if it weren't for music.
Sure.
Right? And the other thing that it's done for me is it's spoiled being a tourist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be a tourist, dude. I want to be a traveler. I want to be an ambassador. I want to be, not just because you get to kind of have a bit of the VIP experience, but when you're traveling kind of under that kind of, pretext, you get to see places in these countries kind of in the back doorway. Like, I'm going in the back door of these venues. I'm not going through the front doors, or I'm getting to stay in towns that I never would have visited if I booked a vacation through a travel agent or something like this.
Absolutely.
Right? So my story of travel is so much about being a musical ambassador that now I can't go back to, like, I don't want to go to an all-inclusive resort somewhere, or I don't want to travel like the English would say, like, I don't want to be a punter. I want to travel like a punter. I'm spoiled now, right? Yeah. And not because, like, look, I've done well in my career as a musician, but I haven't traveled at the levels that A-level artists have. Like, I'm a working class musician. Let's make that really clear. Like, I'm working hard to do this music and bringing home a modest income. That's the truth.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not talking about being VIP or five-star hotels and all that kind of stuff, but just at least being treated in a different way and being hosted in a different way. And people want to kind of share things with you in a different way that tourists don't get to see that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go as far as to say that your hosts spoil you when you're out there, and
yeah, they do.
You're treated like royalty.
Well, we are,
because you are in that moment. You are royalty. You're larger than life when you're on the stage.
Yeah,
and you're seen as superhuman. It's just the truth.
Well, I guess that's the tension. Is I know who I am.
That's right.
And I know that I'm just the guy that goes to the grocery store every Tuesday because that's the day that works the best on my calendar. And you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm nothing but normal.
Yeah.
However, I know that when I set aside this time to be a performer and a singer, that what's happening in that moment isn't normal, and that's okay.
Yeah. It is okay.
Like, in other words, is I'm okay with people projecting onto me perhaps an outsized version of what they're seeing, because I'm the star of the show in that moment, and I know I'm the guy that has the microphone in that moment.
Yes.
And I won't undersell what it is that I do as a vocalist and as a performer and as a writer and as a musician. I won't undersell the value that has for people in the moment. But I will shrug off a little bit of the projections that people put onto me, that it's like, hey man, I'm not really any different than you are. Before the gig and after the gig, I'm no different than you. So that's the version of myself that I am 99% of the time. So I've got to kind of step into that version of myself that people see when I'm interceding in that moment.
Interceding.
That's the word I use, man.
You have to live it to know it, and I'm small potatoes compared to you. But you said shrug off the expectations. Mm-hmm. Those get heavy.
Yeah, they do.
They get real heavy. Mm-hmm. And there's people who collect them like they're gold coins.
Yeah, right.
And there's people whose value is based on those very things. And that in and of itself has got to be a burden that they don't even know they're carrying. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to shrug those things off. Yeah. And there's an old saying, never believe your own press.
Amen.
The good or the bad.
Right. Right. And it's the same reason why people will say there's no such thing as bad press. And I've never understood that. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about?
Oh, there is.
Yeah, I think there is such a thing as bad press. And I think that people's careers can be broken by bad press.
And they have.
And not to mention just the emotional impact of somebody criticizing you that harshly publicly. So yeah, I've never bought that particular axiom.
No, I haven't either.
No, but I certainly believe in the value of not believing your own press for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if you're a musician or a politician or a preacher or a teacher, does not matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. If you would like to advertise or sponsor an episode of The Havery Show, call 863-381-6831. So, I'm a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's taking me to Grant's department store, which is now where the Bell's outlet is.
Okay.
I've got $1 in my pocket. And I had to choose that day. Do I want to buy this Matchbox car that I've had my eye on and that I really want? Or do I want to buy the 45 of A Horse with No Name by America?
Okay.
And I struggled hard.
Did you?
And I bought the record.
Okay.
That was a defining moment for me
Really?
musically.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the next week I think I went back and bought the Matchbox too. But at that very, very young age,
you had to make a value call.
I did, and I didn't realize that's what it was at the time.
Yeah.
But I picked music over anything else.
Right.
What is your earliest musical value call?
Man, I feel like if I had the answer to that question right away, I'd be able to tell you right off the hop. So I don't know that I have the single answer right off the bat, because I would have that. It'd be in front and center. I'd be able to go, aha, I know what that is.
Kind of sprung it on you.
You did. But you also got to remember that I have no childhood memory that isn't related to music.
Your old man was a musician.
And is still.
Mm-hmm.
And comes from a very musical family. And so for me, I don't remember music not being a part of my life, and also music not being a part of my identity, and music not being internalized or personal.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can kind of remember was I was very young, and my dad was, I grew up in the 70s, and my dad was a fan of all kinds of music, but really loved Bob James. Bob James is a jazz artist who's really pioneering work on the Fender Rhodes electric piano, and really was known for kind of making jazz hip for people that weren't into jazz, because he put a funk groove behind a lot of his compositions and his improvisations. In fact, and his right-hand man for many years was Paul Desmond, who's a famous saxophone player. Mm-hmm. My second middle name is Desmond because I was named after Paul Desmond.
Yeah.
That's how much of a music fan my dad is.
That's saying a lot.
So my second middle name is Desmond after Paul Desmond. And so as a kid, I grew up listening to all this really funky Bob James stuff. Mm-hmm. And my dad's friend, who was a drummer, he used to get a kick out of, because I would be dancing in the living room to this stuff. And I mean, maybe I was 2, 3, 4 years old. I don't know, somewhere in that age. And I got this music. I got these grooves. And I just couldn't stop moving. And my dad's friend got a kick out of, would call me over and ask me questions about the most random stuff. And got a kick out of the fact that I could have a conversation with him and answer his questions, and I could still find the 2 and the 4, right? I'd still be moving while I'm talking to him. And he would tease my old man, and it's like your kid's got it, because he can carry on a conversation with me, and I can throw him complicated questions, or I can make him laugh. And his shoulder's still moving. Like, he's one ear still listening to the record.
That's right.
And the other ear is paying attention, being respectful of his elder and answering these questions. And then watching the fact that my dad and his friend got a kick out of it was a mirror for me because it was so boring to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, I can answer your questions. I can chew gum and walk down the street. Like, but the fact that this was a kind of a sticking point for them, it was just like this stuck out to them that I didn't lose the groove while I was kind of having a banal conversation with somebody, was a mirror to me because it was like, oh, that's special to you?
Yeah.
Something about this is special. And so my kind of fluency with music has just been a part of my whole story. And it wasn't until people started to point it out to me that I became self-aware about music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you're a freak.
A little bit.
No, not a little bit.
I am.
Not a little bit. You're a freak. You're a freak of nature.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the studio at B-Town Sounds.
You should tell people where B-Town Sound.
It's in Ontario, Burlington,
Canada.
Burlington, Ontario.
Yeah.
Justin Coop and Robin operate it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful studio.
Mm-hmm.
We were working on my album up there, and we were working on clap tracks.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this or not.
I don't, but I have a sense of where this is going. Yeah, I don't.
We were working on clap tracks.
Yeah.
And we were getting the mics set, and we would clap a little bit, and you're like, "What is that? You hear that? Do you hear that?" And none of us could hear it. None of us could hear a thing. And we'd clap some more. And wait, what is that? What is that? And then you'd have us clap, and you're walking around kind of the room, and you go over to the piano, and the piano in that room had some of the felts weren't quite up to par, and some of the notes were resonating. There was a resonant frequency on some of those notes, and you ended up putting a piece of tape or something on them for the clap track. Now that's ridiculous. You do understand that is freakish.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what? I remember blowing your lid when we were tuning the drums to the key of the song.
That's right.
Where like we would go in there and just sort of like, wait a minute, that snare, I think that's an E flat. That's not going to work in a song in the key of G.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Things itch me, bro. Sometimes, and sometimes I just gotta scratch that itch, and you know, I couldn't help it in that moment. I assure you, it would have made no difference on the final product. No one would have heard that faintly in the background. The piano is ringing because of the sound waves coming from our hand clap overdub.
Yep.
But for me, it was enough of a reason to stop all production for that minute.
Fantastic.
Be crazy.
I loved it. I you know what? Came back with a great record, but came back with a ton of information that I didn't have before.
Okay.
And it was what a great learning experience, you know, that was.
Yeah.
And Coop was so genuine and so patient, and the whole experience was just magical.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that, man.
Yeah.
It makes me really happy to hear you say that.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. If you would like to advertise or sponsor an episode of The Havery Show, call 863-381-6831. We need to backtrack.
Okay.
Because the story of how you and I are sitting across from each other at this table right now is kind of remarkable.
Okay.
I don't know how much of this you remember. Some of it I've probably told you this 10 times. But we have that little apartment behind our house, and we had Trina and Hunter Holton staying back there, some friends of ours. And out of the blue, Trina hands me this CD. She says, "You need to hear this." Okay. I have people handing me CDs a lot. It's not unusual. But for Trina, like, okay.
In 2025, it would be unusual.
Yeah,
Someone would send you a link in 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But back then it was like, you know,
of course,
pitching stuff. Not, like, what am I going to do with it? You know, I mean, I'd love to hear your CD, but I can't help you. I can't advance you. But she didn't do it that way. She just found music that she dug.
Yeah.
She wanted to share it because she loved it. So she hands me this CD. Like, I'm going to listen to this. I was on my way out to play golf. I'm a terrible golfer. I mean, I'm the worst of the worst. And I can tell you this. I remember that day, I lost 9 golf balls on the first 3 holes. And I don't think I golfed again after that.
Okay.
So it was a traumatic day. Get in the car, pop the CD in, and I hear, music. Woo, woo, yeah. And I was like, what is this? First song, home run. Second song, home run. By the third song, I was already at the golf course, and I was just sitting in my car. And
I don't know if I know the story, actually.
yeah, man, I turned off the car, and I sat and listened through the end of that song, and then I got on the phone immediately, and I called Jordan Terrell. Jordan was a young kid that grew up in the church with my family, and he was in Toe Jam. Then he had the nerve. He had the nerve to go off to college and quit the band. And I don't know that I've ever forgiven him for that.
Rightly so.
Rightly so. So
higher education.
I called him and I said, hey, Trina just gave me this CD and I am blown away. And he said, who is it? And I said, this is some band called New World Son. He said, oh, they just played at Liberty. Do you remember playing at Liberty or somewhere around there?
Yeah, no, I think we would. We definitely played Liberty opening for the Newsboys.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So I said, you got to be kidding me. He said, no, they were unbelievable. And I said, the black dude, the lead singer, I said, I can't get over this guy's voice. And he just laughed. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, that guy's as white as the driven snow.
Yeah,
he's not black. And I said, yeah, he's got to be. He can't sing like this and not be black. There's no way. And he said, look at me. I just saw them.
Right.
So I wore that CD out.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few weeks. In church, Bible fellowship, doing the music, we did our praise and worship set, and I left, and I was in the foyer, and this big guy comes out. I'd never seen him before. I don't know him from Adam, and he says to me, "I really like your set. I really like your band. You guys sound really good." He says, "I do a music festival in New York every year. Do you want to bring your band up?" And I said, "Sure." Because I've heard it all before. I've heard every story under this. Oh, we're going to bring you and do this. And
Sure.
I've heard it all. So I said, yeah, we'd love to. And he said, we have it's a 2-day event, and we have these different bands come in, and we'd like to put you in. And he said, we have a Friday night is a youth night, and we have a band called New World Son coming. And I said, wait a minute. You got to be kidding me. He said, you know New World Son? I said, it's my favorite band. I can't stop listening to their CD. He said, really? And I said, yeah. He said, you want them to come to your church? And I said, yeah, of course I do. Because it's never going to happen, because this guy's full of crap. So it turns out this guy's name is Al McCarty. And I immediately left the foyer and went up to my computer and started checking him out.
Yeah.
Everything he said was 100% true.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Not only did he bring our worship team to Scio, New York for the Genesis Festival 2 years in a row. Not only did he do that, but he put me in touch with this guy named Mark Rogers. I'll never forget this stuff, man. I was at the football field. My son was doing pole vaulting for Sebring High School track. There's my phone rings. Hey, this is Mark Rogers from New World Son. I hear you're interested in bringing us down to Florida. You got to be kidding me. This is really gonna happen. All of a sudden, there you are on stage at Bible Fellowship Church. Because Al McCarty thought it was important enough to come out and compliment our band and say nice things about us and start a conversation. That guy has changed our life path in ways that we'll never even understand.
100%.
And his wife.
Yeah.
What a sweet one. And their kids. Oh my gosh. It just goes on and on.
Sure.
So we had you down the first time. The second time we brought you down was for the college. And our worship team opened up for you.
Yep.
The third time we brought you down was for the big event with Chad Varga. And then we brought you down again, and we had the drive-by gospel shows at Mary Tony Park and Park Crest and Dee's Place.
That's right.
And then that led to Chops Horns. Now Chops is playing with Toe Jam.
Yeah.
It's the crimson thread, as my old Bible teacher used to say, the crimson thread.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous. Now, I just spent 20 minutes of your podcast
No. What the heck? Hey, man. I'm your audience too.
So what are your thoughts about that whole process? And what do you think about how all of this played out to where we're at right now today?
I've got 30 more of those stories though, right? It's all about relationships and also all about grand architecture, not human architecture.
Thank you.
Like I got a bunch of these stories, right? Like of relationships that I have with people that depended on me being in the right place at the right time or someone else being in the right place at the right time by proxy, and has led to, not only returning to certain markets, if you want to look at it that way, but building long-term relationships and friendships with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really spooked anymore by those things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just believe very, very deeply in a kind of divine alignment and timing. And, so now it's like, well, of course I'm coming to see Brandon. I'm coming to see my pal.
Yeah.
It actually becomes kind of, it's almost pedestrian at some point. It's like,
right.
yeah, okay. Like, I got to tell the border guard when I cross from Canada, like, where are you going? It's like, well, I'm going here. How do you know this person? When I'm not going to tell them the whole story,
Sure.
But it's like, yeah, well, this is my friend and I've known him for a few years and I'm in music and he booked my band a long time ago and we're friends now. So I've got stories like that in other countries.
Oh yeah.
I got stories like that in other states. And they kind of all start the same way. So something so supernatural starts to feel kind of, I don't know, commonplace after a point, and I don't want to diminish that.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course it's relational. And a lot of times it happens in a certain timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's funny about it. You and I were just hanging out yesterday and your pal sends you a text message randomly, doesn't know we're hanging out, doesn't know I'm in the country or in the state, and sends you a picture of like, hey, look what I found, and found some New World Son swag.
Yeah.
And he could have sent that to you last week. He could have sent that to you in 6 months from now, but he happened to stumble across it on the same day that we're hanging out at the Pioneer Festival.
That's right.
And it's like, but that's how that goes, man.
You can't predict this stuff.
No. So it's like, of course, it's all being written by the greatest author in human history.
Yeah.
So a good author knows how to group things together. He knows how to create tension. He knows how to resolve that tension. And so, of course, your pal found this stuff like
it's just
the day we're hanging out. Of course.
Oh, it's just the truth is stranger than fiction.
Always.
And it's wonderful.
It
just really is. And being able to go up to B-Town and be with you guys, not once, but twice, once for the Bible Fellowship Project with my own songs, but then to go up again with Lee.
Yeah.
And what a great song, Lee Alcorn, what a great songwriter, prolific songwriter he is. And that whole experience to watch him make that album was just absolutely wonderful. And to hang out with you guys, what a cool experience. And you do this all the time. It's not a big deal to you, but for us, that was really, really special.
Well, I have spent just as much time and possibly even more of my musical growth in the studio as I have on a stage.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody has that balance. Some people are just studio rats and some people are just live players. And I'm fortunate enough that I've done an equal amount of both. When they talk about mastery, is like you can't really call yourself a master until you've put 10,000 hours into anything. And I don't have an odometer. So I don't know if I've hit 10,000. I don't know if I've hit 20,000. So I don't think of it in those terms, but I do think about it in terms of fluency and comfort level. And I'm fortunate that I got my own kind of wrecking crew. People know about music groups, or like, you talk about, the Swampers in Alabama and Muscle Shoals, or you talk about I got a team of people who all know how to bring a certain level of fun and mastery to the studio. And so I trust my guys.
Yes.
And Justin Coop at B-Town Sound being one of them as an engineer and also a musician, but also all the guys that are kind of my brothers in my team know how to kind of bring people's songs to life. I mean, we just know how to do that.
Yeah.
And part of that is a gift that gets given to you. So that part you can't take credit for. I mean, that's a gift. But then the other side of it is just the craft that you've honed. And so I'm really proud of what we're able to do in the studio, or even what I'm able to do on my own, because I've learned over years and years and years of doing things wrong and overthinking things, how to kind of find that equilibrium and make a writer or a singer feel comfortable in the studio, and how not to get too precious about things, or when to know you're kind of overthinking something, or when to stop the process because you got the magic already, and all of that is the magic that happens in the studio that we got to make sure we don't lose.
Yeah.
In an era of convenience.
Oh, brother, this is what we've been talking about all day.
Yeah.
AI.
And here we are in your studio right now.
Yeah. There's massive change. That's not coming. It's here. It's here.
It's here already.
Right. It's here right.
Yeah, we're in the era already.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting. 863-385-5020. If you would like to advertise or sponsor an episode of The Havery Show, call 863-381-6831.
And it's remarkable that we're in an age where you can create songs without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars or more on studio and musicians and gear and everything else. It's remarkable, and it's also a little freaky.
I think that we could spend a boring hour, two old guys shaking their fists at the clouds,
absolutely. Yeah.
with a boring take on AI.
Yep.
So let's put a spin on it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I think that AI in and of itself is a tool, and there's nothing inherently wrong with any tool. And I'm not even going to go as far as to say, depending on how it's used, it's a good tool or a bad tool. I'm not even going to go down that road. But what I will say to people that don't know a lot about what AI is doing in the music space, I'll give you a little education about it, right? AI is using all recorded music as its training material.
Mm-hmm.
So when let's say a prompt operator is getting AI as a tool to help facilitate a completed song, and that could just be as simple as getting AI to artificially create some backup vocals. Yep. That could be using AI to create the entire backing track that you're singing along with. You could be using AI to help you finish the lyrics to a song you're stuck on, you can't get finished. Whatever it is that you're getting AI to help you do as a music creator, AI's training material is all of recorded music history. And I can promise you that the AI content that delights its prompt operator is benefiting from good engineering, good writing, good session musicians.
Yep. That's right.
And all that magic that we created in the studio, the thing that I just talked about, is training AI to give you compelling sounding stuff. Because if all AI outputted was junk,
right,
we wouldn't even be talking about it.
That's correct.
But the stuff that gets outputted sounds pretty convincing.
It does.
Pretty good and compelling,
Yep.
But it's because it's sourcing human magic as its training information. And I'll leave it at that.
That's a good place to leave it at. Yeah.
Because without human ideas, AI would be useless to music creators.
That's
It'd
right.
be useless to you.
Well, yeah, and all of its foundation, all of its content, everything comes from humans anyway. Yeah. We're gonna jump way off.
I'm down.
All right. We'll see. Maybe we'll edit this part out. I don't know. You're Canadian.
I am.
Fully Canadian for how many generations back as far as you know?
Many generations. Yeah, my family on my dad's side came to Canada in the 1600s. My mom's side, 1700s.
There's a lot of, I think that Americans have a lot of questions, misconceptions, some thoughts that are accurate, some that aren't about Canadians, and I think the Canadians share the same thing about Americans. I that we are all familiar with each other through the media. You know, what the media plays about Canada is what we see, and what the media plays about America is what you guys see.
Yep.
I'm just going to cut right to it.
All right.
My government isn't trustworthy as yours.
No.
Just like that. You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, no.
Are there any governments left that are trustworthy?
No, I don't think so. Isn't that what it all is?
Yeah.
You're governing people. Well, what's another word for governing?
Oh, well, where do you want to start?
You're managing
That's
people.
right.
You are controlling people. You know, I think it's fine to have flowery ideals about government, and perhaps some of those things play out on the local level, without a doubt. But when you're managing humans as a resource and a tax base, well, all of those kind of all the reasons to be cynical manifest themselves. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to go to the most local level to find any kind of integrity. And even then, depending on the size of the city or the province or the village or whatever it is,
Right.
the bigger the area, the bigger the population, the more likely it is that it's gotten some sort of corruption in it, which is very disheartening. If I really had to put my thinking cap on, and if I had to pinpoint a time on a timeline when government became corrupt, I don't know that you can go anywhere except the very, very, very beginning. I can't say, it was okay until Reagan, or it was okay until Kennedy, or it was okay until Eisenhower. I just wonder if it's been this way since day one.
Yeah.
Is that the same in Canada? Same principle?
Well, here's a funny thing about Canada is that I think that Canadians in general, and this is just my opinion, are more uncomfortable with considering this possibility than the average American is. And I think that our two stories are separate in that way. I mean, the thing that is the most central to American identity is fighting for independence from colonization, fighting to be a republic in its own right.
Yes.
Canada doesn't have that kind of a story. I mean, Canada technically is still part of the British Commonwealth. We don't have a story about fighting for our freedom. We just kind of waited until it was given to us. We waited until the British Empire just couldn't be stretched so thin anymore post World War I. And so finally it was like, hey, can y'all take care of this by yourselves, please?
Yeah.
So and what it's done is it's produced generations of Canadians that have a different idea about questioning your government. And I think that the confirmation bias exists in our citizenry to a deeper degree. And so Canadians don't like to consider the possibility that maybe we have been governed only by corrupt politicians. You know what I mean? And I don't want to single out individual leaders because I don't think it's like that. And I don't think I don't think Canada's got a deep history of being, ruled by autocrats and dictators. But there are certain pressures that go along with being at that top of the pyramid or sitting on that top perch where you have to answer to maybe two different voices. One is your common class and your citizenry, and the other are people who have more money than they know what to do with and more influence than they're willing to part with. And in my experience as a Canadian who has many American friends, who has American family, my nieces and nephew are American, some of my best friends are American. I've spent so much time in this country, and I've probably seen more of America than a lot of Americans have, actually, statistically.
Yes.
I've covered more of the country. Yeah. So I'm making a broad generalization here about my own people too. But the thing that I was confronted with early on in my adulthood was that Americans were more willing to consider the possibility that that there is, corruption at those high levels, and that there is tension between the Constitution as a idealized document and the reality on the ground, and how those kind of rights are fought for by your leaders. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And willing to fight back more, and willing to invest more in the, on the local level, invest more in the power of the electoral process.
Yes.
And Canadians can be a lot more complacent about that power as an individual voter.
Yeah. We are born and bred with rebellion in our blood by our very nature as Americans.
I should have said that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
you just summed it up in one sentence.
You did, but that is what you said.
Mhm.
So
And I wouldn't define Canadians in that way.
there. Okay. So let's do this. Let's have a little compare and contrast.
Okay.
We've got the three branches of government. What do you have the same thing?
No. Canada's political system is a parliamentary system that looks
Civics
a lot more
101. Here we go.
Well, no. I'm a musician now, right?
I know,
I'm not a
but
great student.
You've got a basic understanding of how your government works. So compare and contrast yours.
Well, our system is more similar to the British system, right? And we have members of parliament, and we still have political parties, but we're not a two-party system like America is. And so we have parliamentarians, and we, we have a parliamentary system. Like our government style is actually considered is called a parliamentary monarchy or something like that. So like today in 2025, even though Canada is its own country, we are still technically the head of our state is still the King of England.
Okay.
And so we have what's called the Governor of Canada, who is the kind of the King's proxy, who can technically, although it never really happens, but technically override decisions arrived at by majority consensus in our parliament.
Where does the prime minister fit in then?
Well, the parliament is kind of still our head of state, but still has to get the permission of our government to do of our governor if he wants to prorogue parliament, or if there are impasses, especially if you've got minority governments where you have to partner with other party leaders to kind of get votes and stuff like that. And if you arrive at an impasse, can actually kind of go to the King's proxy and say, do I have your permission to suspend government? So can we lock down government because we're at a loggerheads? Like right now, your government's in a lockdown because you can't come to an agreement. We can actually get the King's men to permit that to happen in Canada, which is really strange. And that would never, ever, ever, ever happen in a republic like the United States of America.
So where does is the prime minister part of parliament? Is he the head of parliament?
Yeah,
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, but he still answers to the governor, who answers to the king. Okay.
On paper, like this isn't a mechanism that gets used very often, but on paper, yes. Actually, even though Canada is its own country, we're still kind of in that mechanism. We're a British subject still.
Is there any talk, any rumbling, any thought, any idea of leaving the monarchy, or is it just if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Well, I think for most Canadians, this is just sort of some antiquated political mechanism. And this is like, well, what's the point? Like, when is this ever going to affect my day-to-day life?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
But that just defines the Canadian identity right there in a nutshell.
Okay.
It's like, we're free enough. We're good enough.
Yeah.
We're free enough.
Yeah. And I think that in America, you're never free enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
More freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, the law of diminishing returns.
Well, yeah. Maybe we've all got it right in that respect. Like, pick your battles, man. I'm just trying to buy groceries without bankrupting myself. But yeah. Yeah.
I've got a lot of Canadian friends, and Sebring, Florida, is grateful for our Canadian friends because you guys bring a lot of cash down when you come to stay with us. And something that's interesting to me is, as a solo singer and with the band, we can always tell when there's kind of a majority of Canadians in the audience. There's
Snowbirds.
Yeah, there's a politeness, a kindness
Okay.
that I'm just going to say it, that Americans are sometimes lacking, that you guys seem to beat us at.
It's so funny to being on the other side of the table from you, literally, because my reviews of Canadians is I find Canadians to be polite.
Yeah.
But I find Americans to be warmer and friendlier in a way.
Okay.
But I've traveled internationally with Americans, and Americans have embarrassed me when I've traveled.
How so? Can you think of?
Because Canadians are more reserved.
Yeah, for sure.
And if Americans are having a good time, the whole room's going to know that the Americans are having a good time.
Yeah.
And Canadians are a little more uptight about, and I think it's this leftover British idea of propriety.
Yes.
Of how one conducts themselves in public.
Yeah.
So that whole idea of being free. And an American might not clock that they may be the loudest voice in the room in that moment. And a Canadian might say, like, hey, pal, you just take it down a notch here. And that would be my experience of traveling with my American friends. But I have been loved on and been hosted and supported by my American friends. And so, like, I have a particular take. I got real good feelings about America from coast to coast. And I found Americans to be overwhelmingly friendly and warm, but I just think that Canadians are exceedingly polite.
Yes.
Or polite. And it depends, right? We got a lot of different kinds of Canada, just like there's a lot of different kinds
We're
of America.
painting with big brushes here.
Very big brushes. And if you go to the East Coast and you hang out with Maritimers, Maritimers will give you the shirt off their back, and they'll host strangers without even giving it a second thought. So not all. Ontario can be a little more uptight, which is the province that I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
For people that have never been to Canada, we have the equivalent of states. It's provinces. It's not much different. And I've always found people in Ontario to be kind of reserved.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the majority of people in Ontario are of British and Dutch and German and even Mennonite descent. And I think in general, coming from that kind of background, we've got these ideas of how to conduct ourselves and what's proper. And then yet you can get in your car and you can drive 400 or 500 miles and now you're in French Canada, and French Canadians are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
French Canadians are more boisterous. They've got a lot more what in French you'd say joie de vivre, just joy of existing, and kind of don't really care what people think about them and conduct themselves in that way, good and bad, and will let you know exactly what they think. So yeah, when you're painting with broad brushes, it's like, well, yeah, okay, there are a lot of different kinds of Canadians, and some of Canada has a affection for the British monarchy, like that goes back generations. None of them are French Canadian.
You're right.
I promise you that. French Canadians don't give a rip about who's king or queen, man. They don't care that King Charles came to step down magnanimously from his throne to come and visit his subjects in Canada. The French Canadians couldn't care less about that, man.
That's pretty cool.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. If you would like to advertise or sponsor an episode of The Havery Show, call 863-381-6831.
Again, painting with a broad brush.
Yeah.
I get that I'm doing this here. Just my experience has been that Canadians tend to be a little bit more humble and they don't need a lot of affirmation, where Americans need more affirmation.
Okay.
They need more attaboys. They need more congratulations. And in my experience, Canadians are almost averse to being praised.
I think that's an accurate assumption. It's something that maybe we would find tacky to go looking for. Okay, well, here's a perfect example. We talked earlier about how I got this new show with my friends in the Undercovers. And we are selling a show that is somewhat coexists in the tribute space with other tribute shows, even though it's not. But we would find ourselves booked in venues that host a lot of tribute acts, so shows that are doing a tribute to the Eagles or ABBA, where the band's getting up, they're putting on the wigs and the costumes. We're not doing that,
Right.
but we are existing in a space where we are kind of selling songs that people grew up with and are familiar with, and it's not about our own music, it's about us doing our own versions of these songs. And so in selling this show, I can say that we suffer from a Canadian lack of conviction when we're doing our elevator pitch. Americans ain't got no problem with it. And an American will stick his business card in your hand right away and say, come and check out this website and take a listen to this. This is the best version of this show you're ever going to hear. And I could learn a lot from Americans, because Americans don't care if you disagree with them or not. Right. They're like, in that moment, I believe that this is the best version of this show.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you're talking the talk, you do have to walk the walk a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, man, if I'm going to go around telling everybody that this is the best, if this is the best burger you've ever had, well, it better be the best burger I ever had.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like this idea of like, hey, I'm going to sell it first and then I'll back it up second.
Yes.
Canadians don't know how to do that, man.
Uh-huh.
We are just terminally humble, because for us culturally, it feels tacky. Mm-hmm. But to Americans, they're like, well, I got to compete with everybody else. And gosh darn it, I actually kind of believe it too. So Americans in general in the entertainment industry do a much better job of promoting themselves.
Interesting. And I'm not surprised by that, not one bit.
And that is an area that I have to grow in that space. Like, and that just is what it is.
Yeah.
USA,
America.
We're number one. We're number one. We're number one. And there is this, you benefit from that. If you grow up believing that you were born in the greatest country on earth, you're going to feel that way. Yeah. And a lot of Americans will never travel, because why would you? Mm. You can go skiing in Aspen, you can vacation in Hawaii, you got it all. Like, you got all right here. Like, and you can travel and see so many parts of the world without needing a passport in your own country.
Yeah, and so many of us don't get out. Mm-hmm. I've been out. I've seen some beautiful things, but I haven't scratched the surface. So let me ask you this. This is a really hard question, because obviously you have not covered every square foot of Canada.
No, I haven't.
No.
I've seen a lot of it, but no.
Yeah. So let's say if you had to recommend to somebody best metropolitan place to visit in Canada. Montreal. And why?
Because Montreal will, first of all, I mean, I love the vibe of the city of Montreal. So, I mean, I'm also being a bit of a traitor, being a Torontonian. I was born in Toronto, and Toronto is technically Toronto. That's how Canadians pronounce it. The second T is silent.
So that's how they trip up the visitors.
Oh yeah, that's how somebody's from out of town is Toronto. But Toronto is the biggest city in Canada. It's got a population of, I don't know what it's at now, 4 or 5 million people. It's one of the biggest cities in North America, like top 5 kind of thing. So still has a lot to offer as a metropolitan center. But I'm betraying my hometown right now, because I think Montreal is a hipper city. It has a slightly smaller population, still a big city, but you get a different blend of cultures that you're not going to get anywhere else. Like, French Canadian culture is a unique culture. It doesn't exist anywhere else on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. It is the product of the history of French explorers coming to Canada, and it is its own culture. And so when you go to Montreal, you can get all the things that you love about visiting a metropolitan city center: the buzz, the excitement, every kind of food that you could want to sample. If you want to go to the theater, you want to take in shows, you want to be around people from all over the world, it's got it. But it also presents to you this unique culture that you can't get anywhere else. French Canadians are their own people. There's also a lot of history in Montreal. There's a region called Old Montreal where you can see architecture from the 1700s, like from like the time of the first explorers in Montreal. I think people in Montreal are more relaxed and freakier. French Canadians have got an appetite for a wider spectrum of entertainment. Uh-huh. It just is what it is. And so if somebody were to say, like, an American said to me, hey man, I've just got my passport. And I'm calling you all out because
Yeah.
a lot of you don't have a passport and you should get one. But anyways, and I want to come to Canada. Where should I go? And I would send them to Montreal if that's where they wanted to take in a big city thing.
Skiing.
Skiing, you got to go to Banff. Like you got to go. That's the kind of the
Banff?
west. Banff. Yeah.
Spell it.
BANFF.
Banff.
Banff National
Banff.
Park or Whistler.
Whistler.
You know, you got to go. But then again, like, so I want to edit that because, you know, if you went skiing in Western Canada, you'd get the benefit of seeing the mountains, right? And which is magnificent. But then again, if you wanted to take in that French Canadian culture, you can go skiing in a part of French Canada called Mont Tremblant. Mont is the French word for mountain, like Mount. Mont Tremblant is where you could go skiing and
White
still.
Mountain?
Tremblant? What is Tremblant? Man, what would Tremblant mean? I don't know. Tremblant, like maybe that's trembling. Maybe it's a sort of, maybe they don't want to advertise that way to English speakers because they were afraid of avalanches. I don't know. Tremblant probably means something else. But Mount, and that way you kind of get to hang out with French Canadians, you know what I mean? But no, Whistler and Banff National Park gives you a chance to see the mountains. You know, we got the Rocky Mountains too in Canada.
You got any beaches?
We do.
Are they usable or are they just too freaking cold?
Well, it depends, right? See, I'm being a Canadian. I'm pretty rugged, and I have a.
I'm a lumberjack, and I'm
okay. I sleep all night and I work all day.
I cuts down trees. I wear high heels, suspendies, and a bra.
There we go.
I wonder how many of your listeners, Harry, are also Monty Python fans. Probably very few. You have a soft spot in my heart for even knowing what that is. There are kind of the two beach areas that people are on opposite coasts. They either go to Tofino in British Columbia, which is a beautiful part of the country, which is on the Pacific Ocean side, or my favorite place in Canada is Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, which is it's a maritime province that's in the Atlantic Ocean. And if you go in August, September, you can swim in the ocean and it's not painful. Like it might still only be 72 degrees by that time of year, or maybe I might be overshooting it. I might have one of my nerdy fellow Canadians go like, you're lucky if it gets to 65.
Oh,
but I mean, I grew up swimming in lakes, so I can swim in cold water and it doesn't feel cold to me. But
that's because you're numb after you're in. You can't feel anything anymore. It's all over.
That's what it is. Your body is just a defense.
Shuts down.
Yeah. I love Charlottetown, PEI. Oh my gosh, I love it there. It's incredible part of the country. Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Yeah, is my favorite place in Canada.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. The friendliest Canadians and also freshest seafood. But you know, like that's like for people who have been to Maine or to Massachusetts, that's kind of our version, our equivalent of that early history, right? Like where the explorers landed on the New World was in that part of North America. So we have similar kind of like that's the beginning of our confederation. That's the story of nation building in Canada starts there.
This is a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
Never occurred to me until just this very second.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly there must have been indigenous people in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys do with yours? Because we took all of ours and killed most of them and then stuck to what was left on reservations and mistreated them. So what did you guys do?
Same thing.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, the exact same thing. I mean, we have tried to find that balance of granting First Nations people autonomy in certain parts of the country where I guess, you know, the colonizers decided like, okay, you can have this, you know, like, because from our perspective as imperialists, we won and you lost. Mm-hmm. So we will magnanimously give you this chunk of land. And I think that we do a lot of virtue signaling like that. We're kind of doing things to help First Nations people in Canada, but probably aren't doing as much as we can. I think that right now we're in a chapter of Canadian history where we are at least trying to give Indigenous voices more attention and to recognize their cultures as distinct societies. But I think that our relationship with First Nations people is just as complicated and just as whitewashed as it is in America.
If there is anything to karma, that's a little frightening because there is a huge debt that's going to have to be paid at some time for the mistreatment of these people. And I shudder sometimes at the thought of that, but I don't know how. I don't know how karma is going to get back to us, but I know that it will. It's a little frightening.
Yes. However, I mean, the history of peoples all across the world are like this. You know, it's all about conquest and pushing people out of terror. I mean, you could say that about Germanic people or Anglo-Saxons as well. You know, ideas of like whose territory is this from a genealogy perspective? I'm the last guy you could ask to help sort out those complicated questions, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
You know, I don't know. And I mean, but I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. Like, and I just wonder, I think possibly we're doing the best that we can in Canada, which is to sort of say we need to honor the traditions and the voices of the people that were here before Europeans came and settled here. I've been to New Zealand a few times. Another fellow kind of ex-British territory that still sort of is part of the British Commonwealth and has some autonomy, but I don't know how divorced they are from being a British territory either. So it's a very similar story to Canada on the other side of the world in New Zealand. And New Zealand has got a head story on Canada in terms of integrating indigenous languages into their kind of wider culture, like what it means to be a Kiwi, like what it means to grow up, you know, generations deep in New Zealand, and to kind of respect the Maori people and the Polynesian people that kind, you know what I mean? Like, so like when I visited New Zealand, I felt like I got a glimpse into what the future of Canada might look like in 20, 30 years from now, because they decided collectively by majority that it was important to include these things in the wider conversation of what it means to be a Kiwi, you know? And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I do too.
Without appropriating culture, like just honoring culture instead of just kind of appropriating and helping yourself to something that you don't know much about. Consulting with people who know more about the culture firsthand than you kind of putting on a headdress.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's a difference there. There's a distinction, I believe, with honoring those First Nations voices and consulting with those people and getting it from the source than just kind of appropriating these kinds of things. Yeah.
Virtue signaling.
Right. And I think that Canada's got to outgrow virtue signaling and step into a more mature phase of our kind of story as Canada.
I haven't heard the term virtue signaling since the kids are the kids. My goodness, since Pramila was down.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the same thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, virtue signaling is basically doing something for someone else really with the expectation that you're going to make yourself look like a caring, giving person, even though that's really the intent isn't so much to help. The intent is to make it look like you're helping and therefore signal that you have virtue.
Right.
Is that accurate?
I think that's a really great way to explain it. It's words over actions, right? Prioritizing words over actual allyship, if you want to call it that, or respect. Because I think what's happened in the last sort of, especially 20, 30 years, and I think it's come from the young people up. Like, I think that young people are being more critical of these concepts of cultural appropriation and these concepts of platforming voices that maybe have been marginalized, and helping yourself to the surface kind of fashion and arts and music of culture without asking their permission, consulting with people for whom this is firsthand, and compensating people or inviting them to be a part of the conversation, right? And so the idea of virtue signaling fits in that whole conversation, and it's like, well, are we helping ourselves to our cultural identity? Are we maybe profiting off of someone's cachet or their cool factor without maybe kind of properly compensating somebody like that? Or are we tokenizing somebody right now? And young people started to ask these questions and kind of be like, because I think young people started to kind of hang out with more people that didn't look like them, and people from different cultures, and build real strong friendships with people, and started to realize that it's like, hey, these things hurt you, and maybe I haven't asked you these kinds of questions before. And that's even just kind of from a Caucasian perspective, and I'm sure that's happened from everybody's point of view. It's just like, hey, have I sort of made this assumption that all Asian people are good at school? And actually, maybe I've hurt your feelings, like by kind of making that assumption. You know what I mean? Or I've tokenized you. I've reduced you to a stereotype.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool. I think it's great that young people started to ask these harder questions about, like, well, you're so much more than just your surface identity, or worse, my prejudice about my prejudgment about your surface identity. Tell me more about it. And can I get more from talking to your parents and your grandparents and stuff about, and understand more of where you come from? Enlighten me. Like, let's talk about this. And I think that we're all starting to kind of ask these questions about, like, have I helped myself to your culture without being critical of my own? Yeah. Like, am I tokenizing somebody's life experience? And what does that mean? And I'm not just talking about ethnic identity. Like, I'm talking about all sorts of sub communities. I'm talking about queer people. Like, I'm talking about, like we were just talking about, what we call in Canada First Nations people or Indigenous people. Like, it's like, you know, like, did I all of a sudden decide that it was cool to hang a dream catcher in my window without maybe talking to the people that, you know what I mean? Like, that actually create these sacred spiritual devices, or is it just fashionable to hang one on my window? And am I missing out on the deeper layers of all these things? Right,
hanging a rosary from your rearview mirror,
right?
You know, that very kind of thing.
I think it's a cool conversation when it comes from a real place. I think it's also a political device that I don't particularly support in terms of using it as a dividing stick or as a measuring tool to see, you know, how woke are you and how woke are you not? I don't like joining into that conversation. I'm not into that at all. I don't like making generalizations about people that if you vote one way or you vote another, that somehow you're more sensitive about people's lived experience or not. I think there's a lot of virtue signaling that goes on both sides of the aisle. You know what I mean? This idea of, like, well, we're going to look like we know what we're talking about, look like we're down, look like we're cool. And maybe privately, you know, that you're just doing it for how it looks politically.
Yes.
And turning that into a type of currency. I'm not interested in participating in that ongoing social experiment. That's what I'll say.
I'm with you on that 100%.
I know you
I have no place for that. I want to go back to the Native Americans, the Indians. What did you call them?
First Nations.
First Nations. I've never heard that term.
Which is, in fact, for what I'm understanding, is even becoming an outdated term as well. But anyways,
So we had, all of us growing up in America, had the lovely thing called the propaganda machine called Hollywood. And so we were fed the whole Cowboys and Indians narrative and everything else. And always, except for maybe Tonto, the Lone Ranger, you know, the Indians were always portrayed as bloodthirsty savages.
Right.
Do you have a Hollywood equivalent? And did you have a propaganda machine that worked to that extent, like we did here and like we have here?
I don't know that we did, just because there's just in the history of human civilization, there's no parallel to Hollywood. Like, it just doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, there's no parallel to Hollywood. And I think perhaps early on, Canadian content that was created may have wanted to cast settlers in a more positive light, and so perhaps humanizing First Nations people made us look better as storytellers. Does that make sense? So if we could have reduced them to a sort of stereotype, it kind of would have looked like you'd played your hand a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like if you're able in your own storytelling to reduce people to savages, you probably treated them like savages. Yeah. So there might have been a reverse propaganda in our storytelling, which is just like, let's celebrate the native person as a mystic. Let's make sure that we make ourselves look good and make it look like, in revisionist history terms, that we valued the wisdom of these First Nations people as soon as we got here. I think that has been the direction of Canadian storytelling when it comes to revealing the story of the colonization of Canada, is that we always knew that we should be partnering with First Nations people, and we always knew that they had wisdom to share with us about living off the land. And so we've kind of maybe told the stories about Native people as having helped the Europeans combat their scurvy by boiling tea with bark and all this kind of stuff, and that the Native people took care of us and da-da-da. And I think it's kind of a reverse revisionist history in our storytelling.
So is this nearly a cinematic equivalent of virtue signaling again?
Well, and I think you're asking one person's opinion,
Oh, sure,
and I may be completely wrong. Like somebody might drop 5 books from my local library in my lap and said, no, you got that wrong. Mm-hmm. But that has been, even in the early, my days of being in school and kind of being indoctrinated in the school system, I remember that maybe it wasn't Hollywood, but there was a layer of propagandization that I sort of tapped into as a kid that kind of went like, did we always view the Indians, quote unquote, as healers and intermediaries with the Great Spirit? I have a feeling they were probably an inconvenience, just like they were in the American frontier story. And that's kind of how it felt to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like, okay, did we always value the wisdom of the people that had to live off the land? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know about that. But.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. If you would like to advertise or sponsor an episode of The Havery Show, call 863-381-6831.
So, you said Frontier. So we had Louisiana Purchase, we had Manifest Destiny, we had Go West Young Man, and we had the Gold Rush. We had all that. Yeah. Is there
100 Acres and what was that whole thing, and then a mule or something like that?
Yes, the Oregon Trail. We had all that stuff. So is there a Canadian equivalent to all?
There is.
An Old West is what I'm.
We do, and it kind of happened at the same time in history. I don't know a lot about it, because I wasn't a great student of Canadian history, but yeah. To short answer, yes, absolutely. And like a lot of kind of European diaspora who were encouraged to go and travel westward and do a lot of hard work and the hard labor of pushing the frontier. That is the story of a lot of Ukrainian Canadians, as far as I am aware of. A lot of Ukrainians came to Canada and were quickly instructed to kind of go work your butt off and till the land, and were sent westward. Not that I'm not of Ukrainian descent, and I don't really have my finger on the pulse of that story.
Sure,
but and a lot of kind of there were a lot of leftover prejudices about even within the kind of British story that carried over to the New World. That the Irish and the Scottish were treated as second-class citizens, not much different than they were, in the story of English and British expansion on their own. Those stories kind of followed over here in the New World, probably the same in the U.S., right? I mean, we won't get into it today because I think it's a really, really too long of a story to tell and might actually bore people. But as a musicologist and as a person who is, you know, as big a fan of American music as you're going to find in the world, the story of American music needs all of its parts.
Yeah, it does.
And it's really tragically tied up with the story of slavery. It is.
Mm-hmm.
And importing human labor
Mm-hmm.
from all over Africa, which is not one country. It's a
Right.
continent
That's
of
right.
different peoples, and different struggles between different groups of people over there were brought over here to the New World. And so what it means to be quote unquote African in the New World is just too big of a generalization to make. And so there were people brought here from that continent, but there were English and Scottish and Irish people that settled here. You talk about the Louisiana Purchase. I mean, Louisiana went from Spanish to French to British hands, and so that there are all those layers, cultural layers of the story. French Canadians that were expelled from Canada in the 18th century when the British won a war and wanted to claim all the sort of seafaring and fishing territories and force French Canadians to either move inland or to go and fish somewhere else. And all those Acadians came down to Louisiana, you know, to fish, to be able to keep their language, and so those stories are built into the story of American music.
Yeah.
Spanish influence. I mean, you know, and so it's a melting pot, and First Nations people here, like indigenous people here, have got a layer of the story of American music. It can't happen anywhere else but in Louisiana, in the story of the Mississippi River. Like, it all comes together to produce the blues and gospel and ragtime,
Yes.
and jazz and all that stuff. And it is America's single most, my opinion, important cultural export, you know, is American music, and it requires all the players.
Yeah.
And so on the surface, you could say that all American music is black music in a way.
Oh yeah.
And from one lens, that is objectively true. But who were black musicians entertaining, and who were they intermarrying with?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And as a musical ethnologist, which I am not, you can peel apart different layers. The 3 chords of Celtic songwriting makes up the blues. The 1, 4, and 5 of the blues comes from Irish and Scottish settlers.
Yeah.
You know, the saxophone was the main solo instrument in early rock and roll before the electric guitar was. The saxophone comes from Belgium by way of French colonization. You know, the minor pentatonic scale is inherent in Indian. You know, in Indian, I say that word,
Right.
you know, but like in native music.
Yeah.
Most African Americans have some Native American descent, if you were to trace them from a genealogy perspective. So all of these things play into the story of American music. American music, rock and roll, can't exist anywhere else on the timeline of human history. It needs the American story before it exists.
I agree.
And I'm a super fan, so I make fanboy music. That's my whole. I'm a fanboy, and I make, and that's what it is. And then same with the Beatles, right? They were fanboys.
That's right. Yeah, they absolutely were. 100%. Along those lines, I am personally, this is just my opinion, I'm seeing a homogenization of American music. I'm seeing it dumbed down. I'm seeing it watered down, and I'm seeing it turn to crap before my very eyes. I think it's an intentional way of dehumanizing us, and I think it's a way to kind of crap on the human spirit. Now, maybe I am overzealous in my approach to that, but
We might be the old guys shaking our fists at the clouds a little bit. I'll grab onto a bit of that, yeah. But I don't disagree with you. I mean, I'd be a liar if I tried to push back and have a healthy debate with you on that point, which doesn't mean I don't love a lot of modern music. Like I'm digging a lot of new music that's being made. I think that this problem isn't just an American problem. I think our culture of convenience in the West in general has kind of lowered the bar on what skill set is required to create music, and has created entire subgenres of music that doesn't require a lot of musical taste, or expertise, which doesn't mean I don't love a lot of the genres of music that people are thinking right now I'm talking about. Doesn't mean I don't like a lot of pop music or electronic music or hip hop music. I'm down with a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is just an American problem. I think that a lot of music professionals in the UK or Canada would say the same thing. They're kind of going like, man, like the craft of storytelling isn't holding itself to as high of a standard as it might have 50 years ago. I can say that subjectively. I won't say that objectively, because I don't think that this is an objective truth, meaning that everybody would agree with you here.
Correct. Oh no,
Right?
I don't expect
some
everybody
people that would say your idea of a good song is something I wouldn't have 5 seconds for.
I get that.
You know what I mean? I'm not into barbershop quartets.
Sure.
It's like, and I'm not talking about that, and I know you're not either.
No.
But that's the that's a pushback, right?
Yeah.
However, do I think that there is an agenda? I 100% do.
We're getting into frequency. We're getting in.
Sure.
And I don't. This is a conversation we could have. And something else that you said this morning, just over breakfast, the attention span of young people today has gone off the cliff. Mm-hmm. And when a kid finds out he actually or she has to actually practice for X amount of time a day for X amount of months and even years, they're done before they even start.
Right.
A lot of them that otherwise might have been fine musicians don't even get out of the starting block.
Well, and I mean, this is a reflex. I push back a lot, and I'll say like it's not only young people who have a diminished attention span. It's all of us now, I think. However, somebody who is our age, or maybe even just a little bit younger, remembers a time where they didn't have such a stunted attention span. So we have some perspective, right? We can admit that we're dopamine addicts.
Yep.
We're all addicted to our phones, that we all live vicariously through our second lives on social media.
Yep.
But we at least are aware of a time where we weren't.
Yep. And I want that back.
And I get you. And let me tell you something. I think that there are a lot of, kids that you'd call Gen Alpha or Gen Z, who are kind of, recognizing a lack of depth in their own times, and just sort of saying like, man, it would be really, really great to kind of go analog every now and again and kick this habit. So I want any young listener or someone who is maybe knows some young people who aren't this way to understand that, again, we're painting with broad strokes. But the thing that breaks my heart is that young people won't remember a time where they didn't have access to this layer of convenience.
Yeah.
And so somebody who's 60 years old that decides I'm going to learn the guitar knows it's going to take them till they're 63 before they're any good.
Yeah.
But a young person says, wait a minute, I'm not going to be any good at this for a few years. Could be really intimidated by that prospect. It would just sort of like, years? Like, what are you talking about, years? Like, no, I want to be able to do this now. And same with being a vocalist who is good enough to go into the studio and not need digital correction to sound halfway decent in their final product. They're not going to need auto-tune. Not going to need all of this kind of software correction. And I have strong opinions about all that, dude. Right? Like, I think that what's happening is the digital era in just in terms of music production is ironing out all the things that make music compelling and human. And we won't get into AI because that's a whole other conversation, but that is part of the same stream, same conversation, is that these things can be artificially created at the click of a button, or if something can be corrected objectively at the click of a mouse. We may be missing out on all those things that we love about human expression, right? Like, are you going to, as a fellow engineer and as a fellow music creator, are you going to take someone's cello performance and fix every note on a digital map, and you're going to run it through software like auto-tune so that every note that cellist plays lands squarely on the key center of every note? Like,
absolutely not. Because
then why are you going to
humanize?
But why are you going to do that to the human voice? Right. So what is it that we understand intuitively about not fixing a trombone performance or a cellist performance?
If it's a bad note, you're going to fix the bad note.
Or the cellist is going to say, "Hey, stop! Let me try. Let me just kind of go in and fix that note." I misread the note in the chart that I'm reading. Like, okay, but we're not talking about a mistake,
right?
We're talking about the finer layers of what makes a vocal performance interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like like there are singers that will bring equipment with them on tour to correct their vocals live, that they can run their live vocal through processing so that the people out front aren't hearing the raw vocal. And I'm kind of going, well, why don't you just, before you get on the road, why don't you take your voice to the gym for a few more years?
Yeah. Well,
like everybody else had to,
Worse yet, there's definitely auto-tune being used in live shows, but worse yet, and we talked about this today, there are a lot of shows out there that are floating in vocal tracks and people are not singing live to them.
Yeah, they're lip syncing.
They're lip syncing, and the people in the audience don't have a single clue, and I'll bet most of them don't care. But I care. Mm-hmm. If I'm paying good money to hear a live band, I want to hear the live band, warts and all. Right. America came to the college.
Sure.
And Dewey Bunnell was having a hard night.
Was he?
He was having a hard night. But I'd rather hear him have a hard night and know that he was giving it his all, right, and knowing that it was really him. John Sebastian could barely sing a note when I heard him.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah.
It was real. And I would rather hear real than perfect any day of the week.
Well, isn't the most obvious metaphor that you could pull something out of the freezer and throw it in the microwave, and that qualifies as sustenance, but it's not going to be the same as the food that somebody puts on a plate, and that they worked and they toiled all this,
beautiful
right?
Analogy.
Well, it's the same thing. So why are we settling for microwave dinner music? And I think it's because, to your point, a lot of people just don't care because it's entertainment. I'm entertained. I was entertained. And so, the thing that you just described where something appeared on that stage and something filled the brief, but nobody was singing live. They were lip syncing, still was an entertainment product at the end of the day. So I guess it filled its role. I mean, I guess filled the brief, but
I suppose,
and now we're both very precious about music.
Yeah, we are.
It's the art form that we're the most fluent in and passionate about. But, would I be able to notice the nuances in, choreography that looked like it ripped off somebody else? It was somebody who's a dancer, be able to identify layers of a faux performance that I didn't see. Right. And I kind of went, wow, those dancers were really athletic up there. And that was really cool. I mean, somebody, that really identifies with this art form more personally than I do, would they be shaking their head going like, oh man, like they ripped off this choreographer and they did this and this person's technique was this. And oh my gosh, I could barely sit through that performance. And I loved it. And I loved it. Right. And I went, wow, I thought that was really cool. So I think that there's a balance between obsessing over the minutia of music or also fearing for the future of our culture when you can't tell the difference between something great and something fine. Yeah. And I think that there are battles worth fighting, dude.
Yeah. You got to choose them.
You got to choose them. And there are some hills that I'm willing to die on.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. We're going to close.
Yep.
I like to close with a quirky thing.
I would expect nothing less.
My man. You're going to wake up on Tuesday. Okay? You're going to have breakfast with anybody you want. At lunchtime, you're going into the studio.
Okay.
Across all of time. And you are going to play keys on somebody's project. And it doesn't matter if it's in the future or if it's in the past.
Okay.
And then Tuesday night, you're going to hit the stage with any live band in any concert setting during any era that you that you choose. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What are we doing,
smokes.
Joel?
Breakfast with Jesus.
All right. There you go. Sounds like a radio program.
Breakfast with Jesus.
I love it.
Lunch with Quincy Jones.
Okay. But now you're in a recording session.
Yeah, he's producing my album, bro.
Whoa, my man.
He's producing my album.
Quincy Jones is in your session
Yeah.
producing your album.
So of course I'm playing keys on my own record.
Well, okay.
Quincy Jones is producing my record.
See, now you
Yeah.
hit me right out of left field on that.
Yeah, you know I would.
That's cool. That is a very, very cool answer.
Well, I think the idea is the exercises go big, shoot big, right?
Yeah.
If this is hypothetical, then like, why should I point the nose down on the plane? I gotta shoot for the
Well,
stars.
you just got you a platinum record, multi-platinum record. If you got
Absolutely.
Quincy producing for you,
Absolutely. Quincy Jones is my favorite producer of all time. Who am I sharing the stage with?
yeah,
Sly and the Family Stone. That's who I want to be on stage jamming with, without a doubt.
wow.
Without a doubt. I didn't even have to think
You
about
talk about light years ahead of everybody else. There you go.
You know, they're still ahead of their time.
Yeah,
Like, it's not like what they were doing then we're finally catching up with. We ain't got there yet. And not only musically, but the model of, I don't want to use the word integration, but black and white musicians playing together.
Yeah. Melding.
Yeah, just an organic friendship that had nothing to do with virtue signaling, like,
That's
hey, look how inclusive we are.
right.
These were just cats that wanted to play together, and it's like, yeah, I got a white drummer because he's the best guy for the gig.
That's it.
Not so that it looks like we're putting on a performance of peace and love and, you know, vibing between nations. It's just like, no, this is my dude.
Yeah.
You know, and then the story of Stax Records is the same thing too, to close on that too, because my favorite music of all time came from that era of soul music in Memphis. It's my favorite era of music. You know, I love Motown. I love James Brown. Man, I love alternative rock.
Sure.
Even, you know, like I love a lot of different kinds of music. But for me, the songs that humble me and make me feel the most like a poser, make me feel the most like a fanboy making fan fiction, was that era of soul music in the 60s and early 70s. Before that kind of music had achieved a commercial success with white audiences, before Sam and Dave broke with Soul Man, right? And Stax Records, a lot of that stuff was produced by Steve Cropper,
Yeah, that's right.
a white guitar player from Memphis. You know, the rhythm section were black and white people. And when they wanted to hang out and just have a drink after work, they had to hide.
Yeah.
Because it was controversial that these people would all be hanging out together in one room. And, you know, all of those artists, Booker T is one of my biggest influences, you know, as a piano player, as a keyboard player. And, you know, Al Jackson Jr., who backed up Al Green on most of his big hits, you know, has got my favorite pocket on planet Earth. But just that model, Sly and the Family Stone, and the rhythm section for Stax Records was so ahead of its time and still moves me deeply to this day musically. And it just so happens that they were also doing that thing.
Yes.
Where it was just people hanging out together and it didn't matter the color of their skin. I don't think it's a coincidence that my favorite music was made by those stories.
Yes.
Those stories. And I'm not sure if, you know, I'm not sure if white and black audiences are hanging out in the same venues a lot in 2025 in America, to be very blunt.
I don't know either.
I don't know that they are. And to the tune of, if they are, it's noticed. It's noticeable. It's not boring, and it should be boring.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Soul Joel. My man.
Hitman Harry Havery.
I love you, brother.
I love you too, man.
Let's go get some lunch.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, man.
I'm hungry. We might need to get some soul food.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll go up to James Brown's Famous Flames. We'll go see if they're open.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. We're done.
The Havery Show has been brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
Bye.